Greetings, citizens. Tonight's guest is a genuine star of the Magic community. He created a YouTube channel that most of you are already subscribed to, and his influence is so well known that he needs no introduction. Wait, just a thought. Doesn't everyone need an introduction? I mean, I think it's necessary at least once in any one person's life. Also, not introducing someone is rude, isn't it? Oh my god. I forgot I'm hosting the show again. You will not remember that I just forgot to do my job, but you will remember to enjoy the interview with Sam of Rhystic Studies. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yes, thank you for having me, Alper. I'm very glad to be on your show. I'm curious about what you're gonna hit me with in terms of questions, but yeah, the pleasure's mine.
Okay, so first question is, now you said that you got into Magic by your cousin, I think it was your cousin, Kyle Miller, you said that name was?
Yes, correct, yeah.
Now, is that the Kyle Miller who is the big player? Is he a tournament player?
Yeah, he's a tournament grinder. Do you know him?
No, I mean I don't know him, but in doing my research, I'm like, I wonder, because you mentioned him by name in an interview, and I thought that's not something that people would do ordinarily if there wasn't a reason to say them by name.
Yeah, no, he's I don't know how much he's grinding Magic lately, but for a while back in maybe 10 years ago, yeah, he was grinding all the circuit stuff out on the East Coast because he used to live in Virginia, which is where I would travel to see him every summer, which is how I got into Magic and EverQuest and fantasy games in general. So I know him and his friends for a while. When he moved out to LA, were kind of participating in the tournament scene, the kind of guys that go to GP Vegas and actually play the main event. That's who Kyle Miller was hanging out with. But now I think he's much more of a casual games player. So yeah, shout out to Kyle. He got me into Magic, and it's kind of surreal when I think about it, because like never would I have thought that this would be my quote unquote career at the moment. You know, all those years ago when I got into the game.
Now, is that? But you have at least from what I imagine, I think you have two careers as well, because you do this, but then you're also you just got your PhD, so you're Dr. Sam now, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so
So
yeah,
go ahead.
and you're teaching at or at least you were teaching at a university.
Yep. So my situation was exactly like you said. I was like moonlighting as a YouTuber. For 6 years, I was at the University of Texas at Austin, and working on my PhD in Italian studies. And anyone that knows my work knows that it's very influenced by kind of being in academia, doing a bunch of research, working in the formalities of the field, and kind of applying an academic approach to the game we all know and love. So yeah, the YouTube channel kind of started as a passion project on the side. I was very much doing it in the off hours and on the weekends through grad school, because it helped sustain me financially, but also like spiritually. It was just really cool to, grind super hard academic stuff for a while and then take it easy and do fun research for Magic. So that just finished up. That was a huge endeavor. And especially the past year with COVID and all that, writing a dissertation was just a grind. So I'm very happy that that is completed. It feels really good to let the dust settle a little bit and see what I'm doing maybe next year if I want to apply for academic jobs. But for the moment, right now, Magic is just taking up all of my time. So yeah, so the PhD is done, and it's nice to exhale for a minute.
You you wrote on Twitter, writing a dissertation is such a waste of academic potential and intellectual energy. It is archaic and gatekeeping at its finest, and academia is worse because of it. I agree.
Yeah, that's funny you found that. You could tell that was written while I was writing a dissertation.
Yes, yes. The rage. I only got my master's in English education, but the rage that one feels when they're in the midst of a dissertation and they're just like, ugh, no.
The reason I kind of said that is just I understand why that is that is kind of the final task you're assigned to do. I understand the practicality of it, but I felt like a lot of my energy was being not wasted, but not utilized in a good way on that project, because it's ultimately a project that not a lot of people read. And what I love about my format right now, I get to do a video per month, and it feels like there's a nice beginning, middle, end to that process, and you can start all over. And the dissertation was like 2.5 years of like super drawn out, miserable research and writing. So it never felt like, it felt like by the time I got to the end of the dissertation, what I thought what I would write in the beginning and the middle had long since expired. And, you know, you just feel like, why am I still doing this? This isn't even the same project. This is not even the same interests. You know, I'm over it by the time you get to the end. So I'm glad you feel the same. I'm glad there's some solidarity. But that's a funny tweet to look at right now, you know, because that's exactly how it felt.
Yeah, I mean, it is a joyless process when you break it down. It's just not pleasurable. And I mean, you could try to disguise it as pleasurable, but I don't think anybody has ever done one and thought, oh, that was so much fun. I really needed that in my life.
The people that do end up writing actual long books and continuing in academia, because you have to love that process. You know, it's the same as everything else you do. If you don't like video editing, you're not going to enjoy making videos for YouTube. Or if you don't like uh whatever, some folks get caught up in the glam or the celebrity, but maybe the work isn't so attractive or enjoyable or rewarding. So for me, that's in grad school, what I learned is like what I probably knew going in is I really love teaching, and I love being part of a university system in terms of being around a bunch of curious students and all that. But as far as the writing is concerned, like being in isolation and having to engage with all these heavy, big ideas all the time by yourself, it just sucks.
You got good ratings on Rate My Professor. I think you got
Oh yeah,
100%.
thank you. Yeah, that's the students were the best. They were, like I said, they were the best parts, and yeah, they kept me going for sure. So
Yeah, he's got Hundy. That's not easy. One of the things that you said that was interesting was you when you originally started the channel though, did you have any sort of inkling that it was going to be something that was going to be financially stable for you in that sense? Because it's awesome that you achieved that, but at the same time, how were you able to sort of, I guess, make that as a plan?
yeah, it's what I've learned with being with my girlfriend, who's such a planner, is that I am a bit of an improviser in terms of my life path. Like I decided to do the or the PhD in general because I thought it was a really great idea. I loved being in an academic setting. And the eventual long-term goals of that could be professorship or could be working in academia, whatever. But like for me, it was a good enough idea at the time that I was going to do it. And so similarly, the YouTube channel was very much like that as well. There was never this like 5-year, 10-year plan when I started it. I just wanted to do it so bad that that was good enough a reason to do it. And naturally, it's kind of blossomed over the years to become what it is now. And I hope to give it, 10 times the energy now that I could give it a year ago and 6 months ago. But yeah, I never really anticipated it becoming. I had maybe like what you said, I had a little inkling that if I wanted to, I probably could. But the timing is everything in that kind of in that kind of decision. So, so if I tried 4 years ago, 5 years ago, to just say, "Hey, I'm doing this full time," I don't think I would have had the following or the support structures in place enough to make that a reality. You know.
Just because what? Because of the time you started it, it was an opportune time to start the channel. Do you mean?
I just mean in terms of generating cultivating a real following and a real audience enough to make that announcement feel. When I made the announcement a couple of months ago, I felt it was like not overdue, but it just made sense. So if you do that wait,
Sorry about
if you do
that.
that wait, there's this great tweet that's like, everyone on calls, we want to see your dog and cats. Like never apologize for dogs and cats. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's four of them, and I'm one of those people. Yeah.
Wonderful. Love that. I love that. But yeah, like it wouldn't have made sense 5 years ago because I didn't have enough of a solid, following or support system. So,
I see.
so yeah.
So when did you really like, when did it like dawn on you? When was like, did you have an exact moment when you were like, wow, this thing has become a significant channel? I mean, you've got, how many followers do you have again?
So the YouTube channel has like 180K subscribers. I'm not a traditional like YouTube person in any sense of the word. Like, so I don't know how to gauge 180,000 followers. That's like, I mean, on TikTok, that's nothing. You know what I mean?
Well, you do
Um,
though, because you've got them. You know what I mean?
yeah, I know, and I pay attention to that, and I understand that's a good metric. What is a better metric for me was not just Twitter, but also like the quantity and quality of the comments on my videos let me know that I was on the right path the whole time. And I've said this before, but my favorite comment always was like, I don't even play Magic, but I love watching your videos, because I make the videos for people that don't really need to know Magic or care about Magic. You know, that's every time I receive that comment, it lets me know I'm on the right path. So that was enough of a signal that like I do have a quality product, and it doesn't just rely on people being in the know to be worthwhile or valuable. So you know, there's a lot of ways to measure out what you would consider success, but yeah, I think it comes down to just the relationships I've made with a bunch of my friends online through Magic, and also, like I said, the people that are watching my stuff and letting me know that like it means something to them. So, so all those little signals, you know, you can't just look straight at subscribers or comments or like followers. You know, there's so much to the ecosystem, and so I try to cultivate and nurture all of that.
What would you say are, if, do you have like an example of like a comment that was left that just really warmed you, that you to this day you think about it like so often it was just that good?
Yeah, there's quite a few. I actually keep a folder called encouragers on my desktop that just like screenshots over the years of people that have said really kind things or have really, you know, you look at that folder when you're feeling down in the dumps and you need some encouragement. So one was very recent. I got a message through my Patreon about 2 weeks ago. I finished the video on the Great Wave of Kanagawa, off Kanagawa, which is, you know, referenced in the art of rampant growth. And I got this wonderful comment that was like, "Hey, my dad went to RISD. He studied art and at RISD, and we have never had that much of a connection in Magic. But I was watching your video, and he walked into the room and watched the whole thing with me, and it was a really cool bonding moment. It was a way for me to show my dad like why I love Magic. And when I can give someone the structure for that, like you can never, like that's the best thing you could ever receive in terms of a compliment, you know?
Yeah.
Like this young guy was like, "Hey, you really helped me bond with my dad." I was like, "Holy cow, that's the best." You know, that's just how do you can't top that.
That's true. I question about like in-game Magic because I only started playing in 2019, so I'm relatively new. Uh, the experience of the like person-to-person thing, I also never did like the Grand Prix and on the Magic Fests and whatnot. Do you think that those will come back again, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think I think COVID has COVID has proven, if anything, how much demands there is for a tabletop Magic experience. Maybe the digital clients are a cash cow of sorts, but I think there will always still be like a grassroots desire and demands for playing cards in person, because Magic is still an analog game, even if over the next 5 to 10 years we might see digital exclusive components applied to that game. Um, and I say that like, okay, you can look at the sales, you can look at the metrics, and you can apply that to all the bells and whistles that have happened in Magic, like secret layers and the millions of editions of cards. But ultimately, at the bottom line, Spell Table was so successful last year because we needed to be hanging out together, right? Like Magic is the best when we can throw some cards on the table, but bounce. It's a social that they're tools to cultivate social interaction, I think.
Hmm.
So like to me, I think no matter what, Magic will still survive as a paper product, and there will always be demand for a paper product. And for the old school folks like myself, um, yeah, like nothing compares to drafting or cubing or playing EDH in person with real cards. And I think we're all actually like, we might see a renaissance of tabletop Magic once we're back able to be in person again in a meaningful way. because I think we're all craving that part that that has been missing for Magic for a while.
I agree. I mean, it's Arena can scratch a certain itch, but it's not the same. And I did like what you wrote in your article, that you in your essay about the emojis, emoticons, whatever they call them. They are sort of like being stuck in traffic, where you can only really honk your horn at somebody.
Yeah, I was really surprised that article became that was a I wrote that article out of my own frustrations, and it really caught fire through Reddit and Twitter. Like a lot of people were like, oh wow, this is exactly how I feel. And I wasn't expecting that, because I thought Arena, from the optics of Arena, is that it's an excellent program, and people love playing Magic on Arena. But after I wrote that, people were like, yeah, this is exactly how I feel. I didn't understand why until you wrote this. So um, yeah, it is frustrating, and sadly, I haven't been able to draft because I just don't want to get back into the Arena ecosystem. So I haven't played since call time,
Really?
which is a bummer. But yeah, and it's funny. I was actually thinking about this earlier while I was driving. I feel like I bonds the most with Magic sets when I'm able to draft them. Like I can look through the card gallery and I can be caught up on what's going on in a certain Magic world when I do my research, but like there's nothing like playing limited Magic to really get a sense of what the set is all about. And I feel like when I think about my favorite sets of the past 5 years, they're always the sets that I draft. They're always the ones that I actually play thoroughly. So yeah, that part's been missing big time for me too.
Oh yeah, I will say the Jumpstart Historic Horizons is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've heard such good things about Jumpstart. I would love to interact with that. Even the paper product has been awesome, so it's good that that's taking off too.
Yeah, like, but there's the arena only cards, and I mean, like, I know I sound like a shill for it, but it's like it's legit a lot of fun, and it's reasonably priced too, as well. Like, at only like 400 gold for 2 packs. It's like not it's not terrible. I find that interesting, that so you don't get any sort of like positivity from doing a draft on arena.
So Arena is a really excellent program, and they solved. I remember when Arena was being previewed, like there was this live stream with Jimmy Wong, and we got to see the program in action for the very first time. For the longest time, the saying was like, "Magic Online is antiquated and archaic, and it's easier to teach a software programmer Magic than it is to teach a Magic player software engineering." And so it felt like you needed to reverse engineer it. You needed to hire a team of 10 software engineers and teach them Magic, and then build the program from the bottom up with that knowledge in mind, versus the other way around. It's
Right.
way harder to sit down with a Magic player and teach them how to code. So when we saw Arena for the first time, like happening, it was like, oh my gosh. The little demo we got with Jimmy Wong didn't even include anything on the stack. So we were like, are we just going to have to play without the stack? And then the program launched, and it was like, wow, this is a really good emulator for Magic as a product. And now it's kind of got its own ecosystem, its own language, its own streaming, its own community. Like Arena is its own thing now. But for me, it still feels like the video game version of Magic. And through the pandemic, I also got really into playing a bunch of chess. And I found that I was having the same sort of reactions with chess as I was with Arena. I really need the other person. Like I want to talk to people afterwards, after the game. Like I want to bond over the shared game we just had. I don't want just like the stripped down version of the game. And digital clients kind of give only that. They only deliver on that axis. So
I realize that's very true. I realized over spell table that I one of my ways to sort of play commander, one of my slide tricks is comedy during the game, which I know it's a cheap thing, but I will oftentimes use humor to distract people from, maybe if I don't have the best hand, or if I have something that I don't want them to kill. I'll be like, I'll crack jokes as like quickly as I can. So you can't really do that over the digital client.
yeah, that affects the game, and it affects how you feel about the game. Those are all the non-tangibles that you can't communicate with just a digital client. And So it sucks it feels like when you lose in person, at least you have the takeaway of not just the physical cards, but like the speaking about the game afterwards, the congratulatory stuff. Like when I lose in draft against, at FNM, like I like to talk about how good my opponent's deck is, or how cool that you pulled that card, that those conversations enrich the loss. And if you lose on Arena, it's just like you're dead, you're done, you go to the next game, and there's no like, sit down at the dinner table, talk about it moment. So yeah, it's a bummer. I wish there was, but I understand the limitations of that program. So
I've the oops thing is my big that chaps my ass because it is there to just be antagonistic. I mean, I have used it like an actual like oops situation, but it's very rare that people use it when they make mistakes. It's always there to like let you know that you just lost, and I'm like, that's not
yeah,
nice.
so many folks disabled the emotes for that reason, and it's probably a good. It's a good call because ultimately, like you said, they are used as like weapons. They're just antagonistic and weaponized at this point.
Right. So, do you have now a question? Do you own any magic art yourself?
So yeah, so I have a couple. I've bought a couple of prints over the years. Recently, I just bought the Stephen Belledin print of Rampant Growth. I put that on my wall. I'm still moving into this place, and we're having to put up stuff on the walls, and I really don't know what to do with it. But I'll show you something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so years ago, I made a video about Niels Hom, the magic artist, who's one of my all-time favorite magic artists, and the mountain that he painted for M10, I believe, it was reprinted in M13, is my all-time favorite magic or mountain art. And after I made that video, he messaged me and he was like, "Hey, what's your address?" And I gave him my address. And Niels lives in Germany, and it's like 2 or 3 months go by, and I just get this package in the mail, and it's this mountain, which I guess it's a really glossy. You can barely see some of it here. So this is it's a similar mountain of the one that he painted. Um, our buddy Nate Weber has the actual original magic art, but this was a gift from Niels, which is a similar version of the mountain that I talked about in my video. And he just painted it for me. He was like, "Hey, have this. I really appreciated the video." And it's like my most, prided, treasured magic possession because he painted it specifically for me. So I paid a bunch of money to have it framed, and now it's I'll keep this until I die. It's one of
Well,
those
yeah,
cool pieces. So
you can't get rid of something like that. That's like that's that's lovely. That's wonderful. Niels is on my
yeah,
he's on my to-do list for interviews. Stephen Belledin was a great guy. He's a great guy. He's so nice, and he was so hard on himself during the interview. I mean, just so hard on himself, like critically, and it broke my heart.
yeah, Steve's like that. He's an artist through and through.
Yeah.
Like he is the kind of guy that like loves the ambition and the process and then hates the product, and that's what you want out of an artist. He's got no ego in terms of his art, and not just because of that, he's one of my all-time favorites as well. I love so much of his work, and it's like you're saying, it's frustrating. You just want to let him know how much you love his work.
I have a quote from John Avon in an email that he said, "I never understood why people love my work so much." And I'm like, eh, it blows my mind. One thing that I have noticed though, and I don't know if you could, maybe you could confirm this, because you work a lot with the artists, you interact with them. I have noticed that the male artists tend to have a lot of that like this sort of like self-loathing that sometimes artists get, whereas I feel like the female artists don't. And my theory is it's because being a woman in a like sort of the man's world, you have to be self-assured. There's no even there's no space for you to even second guess yourself. What do you think? Do you think that that has some truth to it, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I can't speak on behalf of women in magic at all, but I assume there's quite a bit of truth to your assumption there,
Well, just by my
and you
interviews,
can't
by beginning.
totally. Totally, yeah. And I think you're right that some humility is afforded to men in this space, and probably in, America at large. Like we have the space to be like self-loathers, because at the end of the day, even the most self-loathing among us will acknowledge when people are complimenting us or complimenting our work or fans of our work. So you can't afford to be that way. You can afford to take that stance and be critical publicly and otherwise. And you're right. I think that that maybe isn't afforded to women in these spaces. They do have to put their best foot forward and present themselves as infallible and indestructible and showing no signs of weakness. And you're correct. I think it's a tough position to be in on both sides of the coin, but especially for women in Magic. And for the longest time, I've just wanted more women artists in Magic. Wiley Beckert is like, everyone speaks just about her so highly, and the proof is in the pudding with her work.
She's
And
great.
yeah, and it's like, this is so refreshing to see a really successful woman artist have the space to thrive. So I'm keeping a close eye on her. Carlo Ortiz is also an all-time favorite of mine, who was so good that she did like 15 cards for Magic and then just kept ascending and has worked on all the Marvel movies and all the big Hollywood stuff as a concept artist and stuff. So it's really cool when Magic can become a springboard to even greater heights, especially for women in the gaming space. So
It's great. There's a lot more of them kind of coming in, and at least by the ability to like actually speak with them, because it's just statistically it's sort of stacked. But to sort of transition into this, and this is like a very smooth transition for me. I wanted to know, as far as characters, if you could name one female character and one male character of Magic the Gathering, which your favorite ones are. Like, I'm curious. I love this kind of dorky stuff. Who are your
yeah,
favorite characters?
um, you know, I I don't pay too much attention to Magic lore or Magic stories in
That blows
terms
my
of
mind. How could you not do that? You're Sam.
I know. I sometimes am mistaken for being a lorehead. What I do is I'm interested in the story of the story. Like, I'm interested in the world building and the creative team as builders of worlds and creators of narratives more than I am the narratives themselves. So a lot of my work could be compared to like the behind the scenes stuff at a movie or whatever have you. So I love, more than the movie, I would love to know how the movie is made. So all that being said, there are quite a few characters over the years I've loved. Speaking of Carlo Ortiz, that original version of Ashiok is just a knockout, stellar, timeless, iconic piece of Magic arts, and we knew it right when it was printed. I looked at that card and I was like, "Holy cow! This is the coolest character I've ever seen in a fantasy space."
Yeah, they're gonna
The
be up to
original
something
Ashiok.
wicked. Yeah, they're up to
Yeah,
something wicked. They're
yes, they are. They
see, you
totally
know,
are, and I love. Sorry, go ahead.
you know that they're with the Phyrexians. You must know that much.
Oh, okay. See, I don't know that much, but I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah,
They
the
are.
Ashiok concept is just okay. I trust you. The Ashiok concept is just awesome through and through. So Ashiok would be on my list. I remember being enamored by Ralzeric back in the day. Maybe not so much anymore. Um, yeah, I think in general, in superhero stories to which planeswalkers are pretty analogous, I've always loved villains more than the heroes. So anytime we're on a plane with some sort of a villain, like Olivia Voldaren, for example, is another really cool design to me. Edgar Markov, like all the Innistrad vampires are just awesome. They are so cool. So yeah, I kind of gravitate towards the anti-hero or the villain space in Magic too. So to answer your question, Ashiok for sure.
Olivia is a psychotic lately. I mean, I mean, do you have any sort? Have you been following the story at all with what's been going on?
A little bit because I'm working on a big video now for Innistrad, so I did have to get caught up on the last two sets worth of lore and world building, and that's actually how I end up learning about a Magic set or the kind of finer details of the Magic narrative. It's through committing to a video project, which is why I like to do them in the first place. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, Olivia, you're saying Olivia's up to no good?
well, she's wearing girls' faces to make herself pretty. and she's just
Oh,
yeah, and
oh, God.
yeah, they've made her into an Elizabeth Bathory like on crack. It's
Yeah, yeah.
she's vicious. I mean, she's truly vicious, and I think she's gonna. Well, I mean, she's gonna marry Edgar Markov. It's gonna happen. We're calling it right now. It's gonna happen. They're gonna marry, and it's just gonna she's gonna be out of control.
What if it's even more malicious and at the wedding she kills Edgar Markov or something, you know?
It wouldn't be out of character for her. I mean, there's this, I'm not even going to try to pronounce. I think it's Liga. I butchered her name. I will be interviewing her, and I will find out what her name is, how it's pronounced eventually. But she did some art for Culling the Bloodline with Olivia
Mm.
Voltaire, and it is just, if you ever get a chance to look at it, it is freaky. Like she's scratched up all the family portraits, and she's saying to this person like, "I'm your family now. Forget your mortal
Wow.
family."
That's fantastic. That's why I love the vampires on Innistrad. The more I learn, the more I'm like, this is rad.
Now, you are I found this now. So your interests are, and I'm gonna try to pronounce everything correctly. Um, Italio Calvino, is that correct?
Yeah, last name Calvino. Yeah, Italo Calvino is he was an Italian author. I did my dissertation on Calvino. And most folks know his work in the States. His semi-experimentary novel Invisible Cities is kind of his most famous work in the States.
You also like post-humanism, eco-criticism, animal ontology in the humanities, pedagogy, and that makes me feel very stupid because I like fudge.
Hey, well, I like chocolate. I don't like fudge as much, but yeah, that's kind of the language you have to adopt in academic spaces. There's just a bunch of isms and ologies, and so don't be deterred. All of those are very loaded terms, and it's part of why I kind of not outgrew academia, but I was like, similar to I have a folder for encouragers. I also have a folder on my desktop of just really poor academic writers. And the more fluff and the more ridiculous terms that they utilize, the more I'm like, come on, get over yourself, you know?
I wrote a paper for an internet. It was for basically science fiction in the arts, and I got accepted to read the paper. And I thought this paper is such bullshit. Like it's nonsense. And I read it, and my sphincter was clenched, and I thought they're gonna laugh me off the stage. And after it was over, they applauded me, and I was like, what? Like, and I was like, these people think that this idiocy is applause worthy. I feel like that's a lot of academia.
It can be. And about 1 in every 10 articles I read through grad school, I thought, wow, this is actually awesome. I love the way this was delivered, structured, argued, and I'm going to use this as inspiration for my own writing. But you do get a lot of fluffy, bureaucratic, nonsense a lot. So, and that's fair to say. I think we need to be more critical of academic writers and academics in general, but that's also an element of academia that I don't enjoy as much. I don't want to just sit around and tear down folks' arguments and their methodologies and their whatever, you know.
What made you get into teaching Italian, right? Correct? You teach Italian?
Yeah, I grew up speaking Spanish and I took Italian in undergrad, um, and fell in love with the Italian departments. This was at the University of Colorado. I had an excellent experience there, and it sort of left me once I finished my undergrad. I felt like I was just at the beginning in terms of what I wanted to do with my higher education. So that's kind of why I went back to grad school. And I remember one of my Spanish professors at CU Boulder also told me that in general, Italian studies departments are much smaller. There's fewer of them than Spanish departments, and it's understandable as to why. So I chose to kind of go into the Italian space because I have an Italian surname. I have heritage, but it's very far removed. I lived in Italy for a while, and it felt like a natural fit for me. So that's why I stuck with Italian studies specifically. And then in grad school, the graduate students are required to teach for 3 or 4 years. Usually intro or second semester Italian language courses, and then eventually a third semester or fourth semester like content course that's delivered in Italian proper. And I did a couple of those courses too. So yeah, Italian is just one of my many passions, and it comes through a lot in my magic videos. So
Yeah. You're fluent then, I take it.
yeah, yep.
So what's a better language for insults and cursing? Is it English or is it Italian?
Well, I will say that the art of the blasphemy is a social metric in Italy, and if you want to be blasphemous, you have to be creative with your blasphemies. Most cursing in Italian proper is done against the church and religion and God and so forth, and the Madonna, the Mary. So be careful with that, but it is not only encouraged but very much practiced. So if you know a lick of Italian, you can go and search bestemmie, which are curses. And it's an art. It's the art of oration and blasphemy. And so I would argue that Italian cursing is a flourish and is very poetic.
Right?
But even though the content can be very, like I said, blasphemous. So
Well, I mean, it depends, I guess, who you're blaspheming against. I mean, for me, I probably would be okay with it. Maybe there's others that would not be, but hopefully they're cool with it because relax.
well, yeah, one of my best friends, Guido, is from Florence, and he always argues that the Florentine position is that through blasphemy and criticism is another way of appreciating and worshiping God. So maybe that's his own version of it, but maybe in Florence that is the kind of norm. So I don't know.
I mean, certain expressions just roll off your tongue when you stub your toe.
Totally. I know. It's totally true. The best part is when you're in the States and I can like stub my toe in public and not have to worry about offending mothers and children.
You worry about that? Oh, aren't you dear? That's nice. That's so lovely. I've never done that before. No, I'm kidding. Of course, I'm kidding. But
I admire that for you.
yeah, you know me, just dropping the F bomb in church. No,
Of
but
course.
I did once at temple accidentally at Passover accidentally drink the tears of the Hebrews and spit it all over everybody because it's salt water. And I did
Oh,
not realize that it was water that I thought it was my water and it was not. And I just went
oh,
I spit take the tears of the Hebrews all over everybody. My parents were not thrilled.
oh gosh. Oh gosh.
But one, I won't keep you for much longer. But a couple of things that I want to ask you about now. So your upcoming video is about fear as an attraction. Now, are you a horror? Do you love horror movies, or do you love roller coasters, or do you love both?
So I grew up on thrillers and horrors and slashers. My mom was not in the realm of censoring what I could and couldn't watch as a kid, and so they to me feel like home. This is my favorite time of year every year. October is my far and beyond my favorite month. Like I was saying earlier, I love the villain story, and I love horror films to the bone. Like I told my girlfriend, like, I'm so happy to watch a D- horror movie any time of
Right?
the day, um, versus like a B+ uh, action or like superhero movie or whatever. Like, I'll watch any horror movie ever because they just feel like home to me. So, not one for theme parks as much or roller coasters, but I do love the idea of them, if that
Well,
makes sense.
what they?
I'm willing to, you know, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, no, it's just one of the. Oh, sorry. 1 second. It's my dog Bubby got her toy. Bubby, come here.
Oh.
Bubby, come here. Come here. Come here. I'm sorry, honey. I apologize. I
That's
would
okay.
feel like a dick when I have to do that because they're like,
No, I told you that's fine. That's welcomed. That's
well, I feel like a dick to have to take the toy away from her. She's like
oh.
squeaking and she's like, I'm sort of like, no more fun time for you. Um, but one of the theories that I'd heard, I don't know where I read this, but that they said that there's two types of people who love horror movies or people who love roller coasters, and you're not going to really find somebody who loves both. And I love horror. I don't like roller coasters, but they actually cause the same reaction in your body, which is a safe way of releasing adrenaline.
Totally. There's a lot of theory that I've read over the years in genre in
Mm.
Italian films.
Oh, did you guys study? I'm sure you studied Pasolini.
Yeah, Pasolini is there, of course. That was another course I took with the same professor on documentary filmmaking. So we watched a lot of Pasolini documentaries, and he was an excellent poet and political figure in Italy, and his filmmaking takes a certain threshold to under like the more you learn about Pasolini, the more you love his films, I think.
Yes.
Because they have like they have a crudeness, and he wears his heart on his sleeve, and it comes through in his filmmaking. Um, but yeah, so gender and genre, and we studied horror films and slasher films in Italy in particular. So you'll see some of that come through in the video, but yeah, you're right. I'm in your camp in terms of loving horror movies, but not so much roller coasters.
What
And
was the
you're
first
right,
horror
like,
movie that you watched? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh,
What was
no,
the
no,
one that
that's
really
fine.
got you? Like the one that, like, when you were young and it gave you that like bust of adrenaline? Because I remember, for me, my first one was Nightmare on Elm Street, which I watched in black and white. I insisted for watching in black and white because I had read that that dulls the violence. And then I changed it to color about 20 minutes in. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that nailed me as far as the adrenaline. Like, I got up and I ran. I didn't even know what was going on, but I.
Of course. Yeah, for me, the earlier memories are my mom and I were big fans of Children of the Corn. We were happy to watch any of the Puppet Master movies. Like we would go to, we would rent a cabin up in Ruidoso, New Mexico, and watch horror movies all weekends. And being in the woods proper, watching horror movies is just another level
Uh-huh.
that I was exposed to as a kid. So yeah, Children of the Corn. I also loved as a kid. I loved the movie The Langoliers, which I think is a
Oh my
Stephen
goodness.
King.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of a deep cut. Not too many folks know about the Langoliers, but I think the concept is so cool. And that was such an atmospheric thriller to me as a kid. And then the typical slasher films, like uh, any of the Friday the 13th series, the Nightmare on Elm Street series, those are in a different genre all their own. The ones that really scared me as a kid were any sort of supernatural, paranormal movies, and that kind of is still true. I find some of the well-made ghost movies to be the scariest for me. So
I just spoke with a magic artist, Oriana Menendez, and she had said, I think it's called Lake Munga, or it's a apparently one of the scariest ghost movies ever made. I'm going to watch it. It's an Australian film, I believe, and I don't know what it is about the world, but it seems as of later, at least in the past 10 years, all the really good horror seem to be coming from overseas for a long time.
yeah, what I love about watching like Korean or Japanese horror films is you get a peek behind what a different culture and a different socioeconomic environment really fears and how they fear. Um, because sometimes you watch a movie from overseas, you watch a European flick, a French flick, and it's almost comical what is considered scary.
Mm,
But it's even worse when it's to me it's even more enlightening when it's scarier because it's like Japanese or whatever have you. um Shutter is a movie that comes to mind.
mm,
If you've ever heard of Shutter, I've
yes.
watched the original. Yeah, like some of those, even Ring is just so terrifying. And there was a Spanish movie called Wreck, if you've heard of
Yes,
Wreck.
yes, and
Yeah.
they all got remade. They all got remade in the U.S. and The Ring and Wreck are good remakes. But is I don't believe that the one you said, Shutter. I heard that the original's much better.
Yeah, it is. And similarly, Let the Right One In is just, you can't remake that movie. You need the Scandinavian, Swedish environment, atmosphere, filmic language to make that movie make sense and for it to work really well. So they did let me in, I think. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's just so much value to watching the foreign horror flicks in their native language with subtitles, no edits, interruptions, cuts, or American hands on it.
I agree. I agree. It's they're making it into a series though. I hear Let the Right One In. It's going to be a series. I don't know if on HBO or something. I think
Okay. Yeah, I
so.
haven't done much research. I watched that in college and it still has stuck with me. So
It's great. And did you ever read The Ring, the book Ringu, the actual book?
no.
Oh, it's super good. You definitely should check it out.
Okay.
And that's exciting for me. I love your videos. I think they're great. And before I let you go, I totally am going to name drop just because I saw that you love them. But I noticed that you like Coheed and Cambria.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, Coheed has been my, like, speaking of media that feels like home. Like I got into Coheed ninth grade of high school, and they've been just be like my solid center in terms of my musical influence. So I've been following Coheed since 2000, what, five?
I'm totally gonna name drop here, but I actually know Claude pretty well. I was at his wedding, and I'm friends with his wife, and I figured, oh my gosh, I'll name drop because you're like a Magic superstar, and I just want to be like, well, I'm actually pretty impressive too because I know him, but I did. He's one of the nicest guys ever, and I've not telling tales out of school, but he's a very much a Magic nerd like us in a sense. Like he's the Dungeons and Dragons and Lord of the Rings. That's his jam.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I have all the Amory Wars comics. So this is a bit of a throwback, but like Cobalt and Calcium during 2005 era, like I followed religiously, and we through those forums, I got a sense of the story that Coheed was trying to tell before the comics existed, before like social media existed. So like in high school, I was the role of the translator for my friends who loved the music but didn't know much about the story. And I was like, this is what's happening in this record, and these are these characters, and this is why at the end of everything evil Claudio is screaming Claudio because he's a character in the story. So that's amazing. I didn't know that you knew him personally. He is far and beyond my number one influence for music, and for guitar specifically. I have another YouTube channel where I just play a bunch of Coheed songs, and yeah, I followed that guy for a long time. So it's really cool that you're you're
He's
right there with him.
He's incredible. I mean, I met Chandra, who he's married, who his wife, and met her in college. We were in a psych class together, and we just kept friends over the years. And I didn't know who he was. Um, really, I knew that he was in a famous band, and I was just kind of clueless. And I remember at work, I was going down. I was working at Children's Museum, and there was this really good music being played. And I come down, and it's about the week before the wedding, and I was like, well, this music's good. Who is this? And my friend was like, it's Coheed and Camera, you asshole. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. But yep, going to the actual wedding, not really knowing the music. But I think I'm glad in retrospect because I would have been too nervous to do that. If I'd been at Tori Amos's wedding, I would have shat my pants.
I understand. No, I understand in full. I think I would feel the same way around Claude myself, but just out of respect and admiration, you know. I'm not a psycho fan. I wouldn't want to stalk him or kill him or whatever, you know.
Oh,
But
that's sweet.
yeah, you should let Chandra and Claudio know that
I will
I'm a
let
big
them know.
fan of theirs.
I will be like, look, Sam's definitely not going to kill you, so you don't have to worry about it.
So Tolarian Scholar, do you know the card Tolarian Scholar?
Yes, yes.
So I made a post a couple of years ago. Mark Winters, his wife Sarah Winters. Mark Winters is an AD in Magic, and his wife
Yeah,
Sarah painted that
I
card.
interviewed Sarah.
Okay, cool. Well, you should ask her if she was looking at Coheed for that card in particular.
Hmm.
If you look it up, it looks like Claude. There is a semi keywork right behind him. I've always thought that like, oh, I can have my own little conspiracy theory here about Sarah Winters accidentally putting a Coheed and Cambria Easter egg in the Magic, but I
Hmm.
like the thought of it. And yeah, if you look at the card arts, if you know the symbol for Coheed and Cambria, it's called the keywork. That's their primary symbol, and it looks a lot like the shape that's right behind this guy, who also coincidentally kind of looks like Claudio. So
Yeah, now you mention it, that is true. That is actually. I'm gonna have to do some research on it. Maybe I'll unearth something. I didn't unearth anything with my Tori Amos Olivia Voldaren thing, but I did get Eric Deschamps to admit that it was eerie how similar they looked. So you know, my bubble was a little burst, but not entirely because he agreed
I
that it looks good.
understand. Sometimes that happens. There's a piece from the second Innistrad block by David Palumbo who looks so much like Brian Kibler, but I don't think Palumbo would even know who Brian Kibler was. So sometimes the it's stranger than fiction. You know, there is a serendipity between what you think you see versus what is truly there, and that's another example. But at least it makes a fun story.
And if you had to pick one original Magic piece that you could own, just a dream one, maybe even if it's one that's already owned, I know you have an incredible one, but like if there was one you could have that you know is already taken, but if you could get it, what would it be?
Ooh, I I'm going through my head of all the stuff that I've loved over the years. and the artists I've interviewed and made videos about. In general, it might be from Stephen Belledin. It
Mm-hmm.
might be God, he has so many. uh, but here's a quick one that comes to mind. Mardu Heartpiercer from Carl Kopinski. My
Ooh,
buddy Mike, Forthos Mike, you probably know him.
I know Mike. Yes.
Regrets he regrets so much not buying that painting when it came out, and we always applaud that painting as just being a masterwork you could hang in any museum, regardless if it's magic based or not. So I don't think I would own that one in particular, but that's one that comes to mind. I love Stephen Belledin's Sea Monsters, especially.
Oh my God, they're
There's one
terrifying.
from there's one from Theros. It's not Scourge of Fleets. There's one from Theros. It's from Born of the Gods. I forget the name. The colors are phenomenal. I'd love to see it in person. Maybe
Oh,
that one.
yeah, no, I'm blanking on the name, but I will look it up and I'll interject it in
Sure.
while we're talking. But yeah, no, he does that quality of sea monsters where I forget the name of the painting, but it's a very famous painting where it's a naked guy, it's a naked man swimming in the ocean, and he's kind of like swept backwards, and I'm such a moron for not knowing. And a shark's coming to attack him, and then there's men in the boat, and the one guy's about to harpoon the shark, but it's sort of on the fence about whether or not it's going to happen. Steve's got that like kind of grasp of like water and the way that the animals look. It's just it's unreal.
He knocks it out of the park when he gets those compositions. I love this question though. I've never really considered it. Um, but I'll get back to you on a real like the definitive one. I'll have to think about it a little bit and kind of review my notes. But that's a good question. And ultimately, I should participate a little more in the magic art trading community. I don't pay attention to it because it's on Facebook and I don't have a Facebook account. But I know for sure that auctions are going off all the time, and sometimes you can get lucky and buy into an artist before they become famous or become big name and get a masterwork
Yep.
at an awesome price. And it's
Hmm.
great to I'm an advocate. Everyone that I've ever known that has bought into magic art considers it one of the best investments that they can make for the game. Quickly coming to mind is my friend Liz, who has bought multiple pieces of original magic art. My friend DJ, who also did the same, and they become prized possessions that transcend the game. So if you have a chance, please buy an original painting.
I agree 100%. I have the original vampire token by Volkenbaga in my entranceway, and I can't.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was still available on the website.
Oh shit, that's awesome. Yeah, Vulcan stuff is really cool too. I'd love to see it in person. I know Rachel Agnes has the Golgari long legs painting also by Vulcan Baga, and from Return to Ravnica, and it's just a super eerie piece. Gosh, I'd love to see that in person.
I will send you the link to the video we did where we got up close with it and like all the nooks and crannies. It's so crazy when you see them, right? When you see them up close, they are unreal. Like you almost like have to touch them because you're like, this is incredible. Somebody did this. Like somebody
Yeah,
made this happen.
yeah, totally. There was the art show in 2017 that Mike did at GP Vegas. He brought in so much art, and quickly referencing Kev Walker. Kev Walker's pieces have been phenomenal. He's going to be an artist I feature again in this Innistrad video because his Innistrad work is so cool.
Yeah.
But you get a sense of size. It's almost like when you go to the Louvre for the first time and you see the Mona Lisa in person, and it's like, it's just a tiny normal painting, but it
Yeah.
feels like it should take up the whole wall.
Yes. Yes.
Similarly, Kev Walker's pieces are probably this big. Um, they're tiny, they are very small. He likes to work in this very small range. And then you look at Lucas Graciano's paintings or David Palumbo, these other guys who are working on giant canvases. Ryan Pancoast also paints like walls,
Huge.
basically.
Yeah.
Huge.
It's
And
incredible
that,
the diversity of it.
yeah, and that has an effect when you see it in person, when you're around it in person, the size of a painting, how close you can get, that tactile elements that you're talking about, where you just want to take a bite out of some of these paintings.
Yeah,
It's
they're
cool.
it's the, I like it's almost like the gloss and the lacquer they put over it. It's unreal that somebody is able to take what is just like a slop of color and turn it into a photographer like basically like a photograph made by hand. It's unreal.
And that's why Magic has survived. Like, no matter what, the social aspect and the gameplay are so rich, but without the illustrations and the way we remember, one of my white whale projects is about magic and memory, thinking about the iconic pieces that stand the test of time. I think I made a tweet a couple days ago about Gavney Township. I think Gavney Township is one of those images that has just been burned into the collective memory of Innistrad, and it sells the plane. That painting alone sells the whole plane.
Yeah,
It
you don't
captures
really
the
need any
whole plane.
information other than that.
Nope. You're on Innistrad when you see Gavney Township, that style of buildings, those thatched roofs, and the colors, everything. And it's because those illustrators quite literally bring these places to life. That's why we love art. So
Yes, exactly. Well, I thank you so much again. And before I let you go, is there anything outside from obviously the Innistrad video that's coming up later on this month? Is there anything else you want to talk about while I got you?
No, I think if you enjoy my work, I appreciate that. I'm at Rhystic Studies on YouTube and Twitter. That's where I work primarily. And I appreciate you having me on. I know I'm in the league with a bunch of Magic artists, and I'm happy to be part of that club. So keep doing what you're doing, Alper, because it's really important, and it's really awesome that we get to put some names to faces and get some insight into what goes on behind the scenes in terms of illustration. So I just want to thank you as well.
Thank you, and you have one of the more handsome faces of the Magic the Gathering community. So congratulations for that one too. So
I'll relay that to my mom. Okay.
all right. Well, you have a good evening.
Thank you. You as well.
All right. See you later. Now, for those of you wondering, Sam's final choice for the art he wishes he could own was Floodtide Serpent by Steve Belledin, but he does admit, quote, "I'd be happy with almost any work by Steve. His stuff is just organic and not heavy-handed, which makes it grounded and believable." And I mention it here because you can see my interview with Steven in the link posted below in the description. Sam was an absolute peach. I can't believe I was not going to introduce him. It's so embarrassing. It's almost as bad as the time I farted while I was shapeshifting into a bat.
Are you done?
I'm sorry, did I trail off again? You would not believe where my head's at today.
I would. You were telepathing out loud.
No, I wasn't.
Yes, you were.
But that would mean that everyone would know about the
bat fart?
Oh look, there's Emrakul! Bye-bye!